I put in my earbuds and was listening to music as I was stuck in the surgery rooms with their meds. It was a weeknight, so there were still some late surgeries finishing. Up and housekeeping was cleaning up some operating rooms that had been used. It's not uncommon for surgery personnel to come into the room I was in and grab something that the room they were using may be out of, so I usually turn around and at least smile, and they smile back. I was in my own little world stalking the Omni-cell machine with meds and listening to music when I heard the door behind me open. There was that distinct high-pitched squeal when a door needs its hinges to be oiled, made the loud crash that heavy wooden doors make when they shut, so I turned around to see who it was, like always, except there was no one there. I didn't really get worried about it. Maybe they opened the door and saw I was in there and just decided to go to another room, so I continued on. Noticed a cool draft in the house after setting my things down on the dining room table. I noticed the window open. I went to shut it, trying to remember why I would have opened it. I went to brush my teeth, but then when I came out from the bathroom, I noticed the basement door was wide open. I froze. This was when I started hearing this faint but consistent clicking sound. As I got closer to the basement stairs, I realized it was coming from down there. And then I got to the top of the stairs, and I looked down to the pitch black basement, and the clicking suddenly stopped. A voice from below suddenly said, "You're finally home with that." I slammed the basement door shut and took my phone with me. Outside, I banged on the neighbor's door. Patient is coding. My heart dropped when I saw this, and I took a quick step behind the door frame. I immediately stepped back into the room as I realized this man was in desperate need of medical attention. But when I looked back in there was no man. This bed was clean and made. The monitor was off, and there were no signs that anyone had even been in that room for at least a whole day. I thought at that point I was for sure hallucinating. I quickly made my way back over to the elevators, and I made my way back down to the first floor where the pharmacy is. As the elevator doors open, an old man in a security shirt and hospital badge got on the elevator. He patted my shoulder as he walked past me. It was that same man I had seen moments before having a seizure and making those zombie-like noises. He smiled at me as the doors closed, and I watched the numbers on the elevator go all the way up to the 5th floor. I didn't push the button for the elevator to come back down, but the same elevator came back down to the 1st floor and opened. There was no one on the elevator. I ran back to the pharmacy and sat in a chair for the rest of my shift until my wife came and picked me up. As I was waiting, I Googled when hallucinations start. When you haven't slept, it said between 30 and 48 hours, and I was on hour 38 of no sleep, so it made sense. The pharmacy's located directly under the 5455 side, so when I walk in, I can see the window at the end of the hospital wing on the 2434, 44, and 54 side. Sometimes as I wait on the elevator on that side to go back down to the pharmacy, I look out the window. As I was walking out to my wife's car, I looked back up at the 5th floor window and saw the same old man looking at me. Through the window, I got shells. As I got into my wife's car, I didn't say anything about what I saw that night. I'm not sure why I would have hallucinated that specific man, as I've never seen him before, and even if I have, he has no significance in my life whatsoever. I'm still not sure, though, if that was even a hallucination or if what I saw that night was real. It certainly felt real. I went to sleep immediately after getting home. I've not seen that man again, but this was just under 2 weeks ago. Police. I went back to bed, and thankfully The next time I woke up was to sunlight, creeping in through the closed blinds. It was around 10 a.m. It was Saturday. And that night my friend was having a Halloween party that I was going to help set up for. During the day I did a little grocery shopping, and while I was at it, picked up some things for the party. My costume was Velma from Scooby-Doo, and my friend throwing the party was Daphne. I got to her house around 6 p.m. The party started at 9 and it really picked up around 10:30. I was there pretty late. I probably left her house a little after 1 a.m. I was good to drive as I didn't really drink much besides a few beers. When I got home I immediately I apologized and said, "I'm just scared." It was around this time that the two officers walked around the house with their flashlights. They went full circle and then came back, but honestly they didn't really check very thoroughly. I watched them through the windows. They came back to the door and told me there's nothing they can do if I don't have any cameras or proof of the man trying to commit any wrongdoing. The two cops then left. I didn't feel any better at all, besides the fact that maybe whoever that man was saw I called. They're closed. We still live in this house today. But for a few months I refused to be alone in the house for extended periods. I still have PTSD from this, and sometimes I have nightmares in which I think I'm hearing knocks at the window. And then I wake up. Trip, he was demeaning towards me, telling me to shush and talking over me while I was trying to explain. He also didn't seem to take my claims very seriously. His partner didn't say a word. He just stood in the back. The taller one asked me details that I'd already made clear I wouldn't have, such as what the man looked like, when I clearly stated that I hadn't seen him. And the officer actually said to me, "Well, you're the one who called us. Ma'am, if you don't want our help we can leave." I was taken aback completely. I'd never called the police before, and I never expected such a lack until he answered, and I chose to call the police in the safety of my neighbor's house. It was unfortunately the same two officers who returned to my house. My neighbor accompanied me as I went to speak with them this time, and I think that may have had some kind of impact on that taller cop's attitude. He wasn't as rude this time. He and his partner checked the house while my neighbor and I stood in the living room. Eventually, after their initial search, I showed them some of the spots I'd imagined someone could be hiding. I basically tore the entire house upside down while also on the phone with my drunk boyfriend. When I was sure that no one was here anymore, I packed a bag to go stay with my sister until M came back. This time I locked every window before leaving. The main takeaway lesson for my story is, if you have windows that open wide enough for someone to crawl through, make sure they're always locked. When up the hospital delivering meds to the nurses' station floor by floor until I got to the 5th floor, I went to the 5152 side, delivered the meds, and decided to go check out the progress of the 5455 side. As I went over there, I just got creeped out. There were no nurses, no patients, just the long, empty hallways. The surgery rooms are already empty and desolate most nights, so I'm used to walking around down there, no problem, but seeing empty patient rooms just creeped me out. I walked slowly down the 55 side. I heard a noise that sounded like one of the hospital beds rattling. As I passed 5512, I quickly found out what the noise was. As I looked into the rooms, I saw an old man violently shaking, as if he was having a seizure. Blood was running down his eyes, nose, and out of his mouth. He was making this gargling groaning sound almost like the sounds the zombies in The Walking Dead make. A monitor was frantically beeping like it does when while exploring was moving forward. Listening, whoever was playing it was. Walking the main trail I didn't plan to. Going to let anything happen to you and. Probably about 15 to 20 minutes in. And around she agreed, and so we began. Quarantine. My friend group and I were in there for too long because it was trail essentially making a full circle. I knew I had to man up and get us out of. Much to do, since all the non-essential, playing some sort of piece of. Clarissa started praying to God to save. This situation. This is going to sound. Coming from it sounded like it was. Road that leads back to where my truck park around 3 a.m. It's super creepy. Even focus, because she was so scared began to sprint. I believe the flute. What happened this night, I'm sure none. Instead of walking all the way back, situation to be clear, it was super hard. Going out more than ever there wasn't. Off-road trail to get away, so we did her and forgive her for her sins. That's playing. Clarissa and I stopped dead in. Playing it was at the off-road trail was playing that flute or what dashed right. Point my fight or flight instincts. Porta potty and I was scared to death. Previous main trail which was parallel. Really hoping someone might have. Rhythmic flute solo I couldn't find. Right in front of us now this could have. Right in front of us we obviously turned. Right on top of us Clarissa couldn't. Schneebel, it's relatively nice safe. See anyone or signs of anyone ever. Seemed to be somewhat parallel to where. Senior year of high school, but this was. Shape of anything in front of us another. Slight insomnia. I literally could not go to sleep after getting to my wife's aunt's house. This isn't anything new, but I had never stayed up for more than snapping of leaves and twigs before some. So we cut the 20-minute walk into a 7-2. Some sort of Irish jig song or something. Something big dashed across the trail. Started to play again loud and right on. Stopped playing, but it was hard to. Strange thing is I didn't hear it coming. Suddenly out of nowhere a flute began. Super in cadence and sounded like it was supposed to be staying home and being in surgery rooms. I work for 7 days in a row. Terrifying dash right in front of us. Or that night I knew a trail that goes off the darkness and you can really only see. The flute noise must have stopped along. The flute solo. Clarissa began trembling. The only vehicle in the area near the run back there was a random. The sound could have traveled that far. The truck and I sped far away from. The woods was shot. Clarissa and I get to them off. While exploring we were there the next day. I told all my friends. Thing is, I never saw a silhouette or. This happened when I was 18. I'm 22 now. I need to be at work at 6 p.m. I ended up falling asleep in the car for a little less than 10 minutes. I was really feeling that wave of sleepiness come over me, but I ended up to pinpoint where the sound was coming, to pinpoint where the sound of the flute, to process that it may have sounded good, to where we were with about maybe 32. Told her that we should run down the top of us. This time it was almost trail. We were probably only about. Trembling in fear. Let's start running. Very well been a deer or some sort of. Walking through that off-road. Was a person ghost cult, or what was brutally murdered. Was kind of just listening, but when was parked I told her we could take that. Was waiting for us to return the flute. We ran back. Adrenaline was still pumping.